gentlemen, you asked for it. Both require you to shut off your brain a little in order to get through them, but where the book becomes just boring and grating, the movie is absolutely hilarious if watched with the right attitude.
That's it. I'm sick of this. Somebody's got to stand for the tryhards. He's not the only one, but maybe if I get Band Geek 8408 to understand that there's redeeming and wonderful aspects of the Twilight Saga, then I could change multiple minds. First, I need to get to his level. The only way to make someone understand is to speak their language. Over the past few years, there's been a lot of insults towards Stephenie Meyer's Twilight Saga. Specifically, I'm going to be dealing with Band Geek 8408's thoughts and feelings from his latest Books vs. Movies review. But since I'm already on my soapbox, I'm going to talk about a lot of things that people have been saying about Twilight. Also, since the fact that most of the complaints have to do with character, I'm going to show the entire character growth by discussing the 4 main books within the saga. So let's get on with it. For those of you that have been living under a rock the last couple of years, here's a simple overview of the Twilight Saga. The story starts with the first book, Twilight. In Twilight, Bella Swan moves from Arizona to the small town of Forks, Washington. There, she's going through a teenage funk and missing her old life. However, this starts to change when she falls in love and has a relationship with vegetarian vampire Edward Cullen. In the course of their blossoming romance, Edward saves Bella from the evil vampire James. The film basically has the same storyline, and I'll get back to the film a little later since you and your friends deemed it best. But it brings the evil vampires out earlier and makes them a threat looming throughout the entire story. The second book in the series is New Moon. In New Moon, Edward's adoptive brother, Jasper, nearly kills Bella. Because of that, Edward recognizes that he has to leave for Bella's safety. When Edward and the rest of his family leave, Bella gets extremely depressed, and during that depression she even goes a little insane and starts hearing voices. However, it's during that time where she develops a closer friendship with the shapeshifter, turned into a wolf, Jacob Black, who was a childhood friend. However, in the end of the story, Edward and Bella get back together again. And at this point, the rest of the Cullens have agreed that Bella will be turned into a vampire. The storyline is basically the same again, but honestly and surprisingly, I like it better. What? I know, I'm normally this giant crazy book purist and books are always better than movies. But New Moon is a really sad and depressing story. It's meant to be. And the pacing in the film is just a lot faster, and she seems to have a bit more fun with Jacob, which makes the whole story a lot more fun to be paying attention to in the film. But we're Team Edward! Yes, but in the book, we have Bella complaining about Edward proposing. Not very Team Edward. Here, we don't get that reaction. Although, to be fair, we don't get any reaction beat at all because it cuts the black. Well, Eclipse is the third book in the series, and actually my favorite. It's where we get to see more tension, more romantic issues going on between the triangle, and a lot more action and fighting. It's also where we see the werewolves, well, the shapeshifter wolves, and the vampires working together against a common enemy of an army of newborn vampires. And Bella actually gets a proper proposal that she says yes to. The movie attempts to tell everything that's in the book, including several backstories, and though as a fan I really do appreciate the fact that they're trying to include all the details, it feels very rushed, and I wish it would have been longer to properly tell these stories. The final book in the saga is called Breaking Dawn. In Breaking Dawn, we get to see Bella Swan finally become Bella Cullen. And the newly wedded couple ends up getting pregnant, and there's a score of issues that deal with that. We also get a section of the novel which is narrated from Jacob's perspective, which is really interesting, despite the fact that I like Edward. It also shows Bella coming to a new level of strength and power that she never had before. Although, I do admit the ending is a bit anticlimactic. In November, Twilight will be taking Harry Potter's lead and starting Breaking Dawn Part 1. A lot of people are saying it's just a ploy to make more money, but honestly, I just want to see better adaptations. And two-parters offer that. But enough about the recap. Let's sit down and talk about the issues all you guys have with Twilight. The main issue people seem to have with the Twilight saga in general is Bella. They tend to think she's a poor role model and too weak. But I think that's going with a misunderstanding of not only the character, but the genre that the story is being told in. The Twilight saga, specifically the first one, and that's what you reviewed, is very much an archetypal fairy tale. There's the damsel in distress, and the brave prince that comes and saves her. Sure, she's being rescued by a guy in a Volvo, and not on a white horse. But the concept is still exactly the same. Few people seem to have problems with Ariel. Or you did. Few people seem to have problems with Aurora needing to be rescued from her slumber, or Cinderella needing to be rescued from her situation, both by love. I think the major problem with understanding it's a fairy tale, or the concept similar to a fairy tale, is that it takes place in the present, and the 21st century is unforgiving of such concepts as the damsel in distress. But it's a fairy tale, and that's how these kind of stories work. Now, since Twilight is basically a fairy tale, a lot of people complain that the fan base is almost solely a group of teenage girls who have not yet learned how to think and analyze things critically. However, I'd like to prove that's wrong. Me being example A. This is my high school diploma, my associate's degree, and my new friend, my bachelor's degree. I'm educated, and I still like it. Along with me, there's Exhibit B, which is called the Twilight Moms. And this is a group of women who are in their 40s, 50s. I've even heard of some ladies in their 80s who just like the story. They're compelled by it, and they enjoy it. So you see, it's not just for little girls. I've been on a tangent for a little bit, but let's get back to Bella. Like I said, many people feel she's not a valid role model for their daughters, despite the fact that they're fine putting Snow White in front of her. And the main reason a lot of people are saying they're not valid for young girls is because she needs a man for anything. I'd also like to point out that I don't necessarily think that it's about a girl that needs to be protected by men. I feel the story's focus is about a human that's surrounded by supernatural figures, and therefore needs to be protected. But I'll get back to that later. I suppose if I'm talking about Bella's need for a man, I'm going to have to mention Newman. Now, I'll be the first person to say that Bella's actions are inappropriate, and that's putting it lightly. When Edward leaves, she actually goes crazy. I mean, in the novel, she's hearing voices. In the film, she's actually seeing him, which makes it even more crazy. However, I'd like to postulate that there's something more going on here. Bella's story in Twilight, in general, is basically what it's like to be a teenage girl. It's the emotions and everything, but it's exaggerated. It's an exaggeration of what it's like to be a teenager. Teenagers deal with the idea of this invisible audience. They feel like everybody's watching them. Everybody is judging them. They don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel this or that. It's just what it's like to be a teenager. I think that's actually what draws a lot of teens, because they're experiencing these emotions, and older women, because we've already experienced them. They're part of who we are. They formed us. For instance, when a teenager is breaking up with someone, has been dumped, they feel broken, distraught, completely depressed. I mean, I remember when I was 16 and my first boyfriend dumped me. I shut the world out. I didn't go to school for a day. I didn't want to deal with things. Like I said, the Twilight Saga is exaggerated teenage feelings. So instead of the day, it's several months. But it's true to the core of what it feels like to be a teenager. Another thing going on here that no one else seems to notice is that Bella just hasn't lost Edward. She's lost her friends and her future. She's already discussed how she wants to be a vampire, and in the first movie and the first book, this is solidified by the fact that Alice has had a vision about it. She knows it's going to happen, so when Edward and the Cullens leave, her whole future is taken away. It's like if you wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, got scouted, were going to be on the team, and your arm got cut off in an accident. Can't be a pitcher anymore. When your future's lost, you're going to be really sad, and you're not going to know how to deal with it. Becoming a vampire is the ultimate stability for Bella. The books take great pains to explain that Bella did not have a very stable childhood, along with the obviousness of the divorce and one parent living in a completely different part of the country than the other. Bella was raised by her mother, or rather, Bella raised her mother as a child. There's many points where we hear that Renee just doesn't know how to take care of herself. So she's changing her mind, doesn't stay in one place. Everything is so unstable. Imagine finally being told that you have a chance to have stability and have it ripped away from you. The books explain that vampires' emotions, feelings, thoughts don't really change. They're frozen. So this means that the Cullen family is always going to be together. They're going to love each other, support each other. They're a family forever. When Bella is told that when Edward is gone from Bella's life, she isn't just losing her boyfriend. She's losing her future stability and all the plans that came with that. Now, I've already mentioned that I prefer the film version of New Moons, and this is partially why. Throughout the entire film, Bella's writing emails to Alice. We see that she's not just lamenting the loss of her boyfriend, but also the loss of her best friend. Now, the films don't necessarily do the greatest job of explaining why the fans adore Alice so much, but we can see here that Bella loves Alice, and she misses her. And it's not just about a man. It's at this point that I want to bring up one thing. I don't think it's necessarily bad to want a man to be a part of your life, or a major aspect of your future. I'm college educated, and I do want to work specifically in a church for a while. But when I have kids, I'm going to stay home. That's my aspiration. And you know what? I think it's completely insulting to say that my aspirations are wrong. I'm traditional, conservative, old school, whatever you want to say. The Twilight books are written by a woman. She's not being sexist towards herself. That would be stupid. I have no problem with women who want to work, who want to succeed really heavily in business for the rest of their life while they're raising their children. And the fact that I'm not insulting your aspirations shouldn't mean that you should be against my aspirations or the conservative ideals. It's just not fair, and I'm showing you courtesy. You show me courtesy too.